scared.
So the Series 6 arc is mostly over, and now it's just back to plain old ordinary adventures, I guess. Night Terrors fits the bill precisely under that term, as it is simply the characters responding to a stress call, sorting out an alien-related problem, and going on their merry way. It's unsurprising that this episode was written by Mark Gatiss, as he always seemingly got handed these slots. Damn, son, look at that handlebar. The story was inspired by his fear of dolls. Can't say I share the feeling, but the whole tone of the episode's marketing is trying to strike fear in the hearts of the audience. Or at least that's what I think it was trying to go for.
Doctor Who is scary, but this is the scariest of all time.
Anyway, I hope to provide you all with some critical insight into this episode and why it fails to live up to other scary episodes like Blink and The Empty Child. If you have fear and anxiety like little Georgie boy does, I suggest giving meditation a try. I've been a long-time fan of meditating myself and would like to personally recommend Modern Meditation: Discover Your Potential, Power and Purpose by Justin Michael Williams over on Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform for creative and curious people. Whether you write, draw, photograph, film, or just want to pick up a new hobby and need some ideas, Skillshare has a class for you. They have so many ad-free videos and workshops you can enjoy, with new premium classes being produced all the time for an annual subscription that comes to £7 a month. If this sounds cool to you, then you should definitely check out my link in the description. The first 1,000 of you to do so will get a month-long free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. Now, without further ado, let's get on with the review. We begin by concisely presenting a block of flats. Boy George and his mother enact a ritual that he believes will, help him sleep better. I found this moment rather baffling, considering that if this is something routine, you would think she'd get it right just so that she cannot be late for work. The parents in the other room simplistically explain to each other, as though they've never had this conversation before, that George is a troubled child and needs help. Their conversation is filmed from George's point of view, illustrating the root of his fears within the first 2 minutes of the episode. This fear gets catapulted into space where it appears on the Doctor's psychic paper. I quite liked that there was a literally psychic message here, giving the thing more potential utility in future episodes. The trio then go on a wild goose chase trying to hunt down this child. It attempts to pull off some comedy, but the idea that all these people answer their doors so late in the day makes the scenario rather unbelievable. Seeing all three of them having doors slammed in their faces doesn't seem as funny when this is the rather obvious outcome considering the time of day. Even Amy, looking all tired out after knocking on one door, seems to show how poorly thought out this exercise was. Of course though, the story needs to be at night time, otherwise it's not scary. I mean, it was kinda nice Rory having this rather skeptical attitude towards the whole affair, but he then gets thrown down an elevator with Amy, leading them to the doll's house in George's wardrobe.
We're dead, aren't we? The lift fell and we're dead.
Shut up.
We're dead. Again.
This attitude continued hilariously on from there, but I wondered on a second rewatch why they didn't try and make this entire segment scarier. Maybe they wanted it to be a comedy? If this doll's house is locked away in the cupboard, where is this moonlight coming from? The pair fumbling around in complete darkness would have made for a far more frightening affair.
Why aren't there any lights? I miss lights. Lights are great, aren't they? I mean, if this place is all lit up, we wouldn't even be worried at all.
Rory.
Look, the dialogue's there, just not anything else. Good job Rory happens to carry a torch around with him, eh? Honestly, not a lot happens in the house for the most part. I mean, there was a rather hilarious moment when some old lady got eaten by a pile of rubbish. See, I say hilarious again because the show is trying to throw scary things at us, like with the elevator and the landlord falling through the floor, that are genuinely funny, not scary. The rubbish granny is seen once in the house and doesn't get seen again until she's been regurgitated at the end. When you learn early on that this episode was moved back because it was too dark, I expected a bit more than just people turning into dolls, the only genuinely creepy thing to happen. There's some piercing wooden sound effects, the paling makeup, the hair and head expansion, god, all this stuff is absolute class. Even Amy got the transformative treatment, but that moment sadly never really carried any weight as everything just went back to normal after George hugged his daddy. The giggling and music definitely do a great job of not unsettling me either. When they talked, I just laughed.
Don't run away. We just want to play.
Give the scissors to the dolls, turn off all the lights, and get rid of all the music, and you might count me in as interested. The doctor arrived at George's flat and is greeted by his father, Alex. The only thing he did wrong apparently was when George goes to bed, he didn't shut the door behind him so he could chat to his wife in private. This factor oddly ties into how Alex lets the doctor in without any concern that their chatting might prevent George from sleeping. Has he got school in the morning? What's his school life like? It doesn't matter though, just keep showing George having
night terrors.
George then has a wobbly about the lift and breaks his lamp, with Alex seemingly changing the bulb in between scenes. The script manages to make Alex's dialogue seem as though George wasn't even in the room.
Maybe it was things on telly, scary stuff, getting under his skin, frightening him, so we stopped letting him watch. Then Claire thought it might have been something he was reading. Anything that frightens him, we put it in the cupboard.
Maybe the issue Alex is concealing is neglect. Of course, this is just another misdirection, as the only thing Alex is neglecting is shutting that fucking door. Just as the doctor goes to open the wardrobe, though,
front door.
Turns out the guest is the landlord, who threatens Alex in a rather menacing manner. This gives context to Alex's neglect, as he probably spends more time sending off CVs than he does tending to his son. To have a man and his dog coming round and harassing them on a regular basis would certainly torment a young impressionable mind. The pair then have a conversation whilst the doctor attempts to make a cup of tea. Notice how I said attempts. If you watch the scene from start to finish, you'll notice that the doctor thinks making a cup of tea is simply putting tea bags in mugs and pouring milk on top of them. He doesn't even boil the kettle.
Cupboard bad, cupboard not bare, stay away from cupboard, and there's something else, something I've missed, something staring me in the face.
I did appreciate Alex trying to get the doctor to leave here, realising that the man might not be a social worker after all. Trouble is, it's not exactly made clear to Alex what the doctor actually is, if not a social worker. The doctor goes on this massive spiel about how he got George's message from across time and space. Alex, being the idiot that he is, unquestioningly believes the story in its entirety. The doctor might as well have just given him the headbutt treatment like he did with James Corden. The doctor finally opens the cupboard, then proceeds to ask Alex how old his son is right in front of his son. I understand the whole purpose of this was to reveal that George is an adopted alien, but seriously, this couldn't have been done in another room? Doesn't matter, because the pair get sucked into the wardrobe in... oh yeah, have I said hilarious fashion already? Speaking of hilarious, I loved how quickly the doctor got Alex up to speed upon entering the doll's house. Him throwing plastic food and Spitfire dialogue had me laughing a lot here. The doctor also claims George to be a tenser.
George is a tenser, of course he is. He's a what? A tenser. He's a tenser.
Not to be confused with the stenser. Admittedly, I do like the facing your fears solution to the story, as it's a lesson all can learn from, not just children. Sadly though, we get an additional solution requirement for the story, that being Alex giving George some love. It worked in The Doctor Dancers, and... it has to work here too, I guess. Once again, the ending feels very stitched on, with a rather cringy rhyme written to forebode the Doctor's death. You hear it throughout the episode, which didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I was under the impression the dolls were all singing this song, which was all about the Doctor, when the dolls are just conjurations of an alien child's mind. How on earth would George have known about the Doctor's death? At first I was thinking how nice it was to have a singular contained story, seeing as I'm not a huge fan of the overarching narrative the series has attempted thus far, but it's still seemingly inescapable as the writers insist on bashing us on the head about something that would not so easily be forgotten about. So, did it suck? I don't think this is a bad episode, it's just so confused with its intent. How they hype it up as being scary and dark, only to find it can be pretty damn funny. Do I like it for being funny, or is it funny because it's not scary? A lot of the dialogue is interesting and self-aware, and when it tries, it can be rather chilling. I don't think they did enough to make it live up to its expectation though, and a lot of the nonsensical elements of the script make this episode a bit of a jumbled mess. I haven't mentioned the child acting, but that's because Jamie Oram does fuck all in this episode. I was reminded of the episode Fear Her, and that episode has too much child acting. This episode has the opposite problem. He's such an uninteresting character and basically has all his characteristics explained to us instead of letting him be a character. Again though, would I really have wanted more dialogue out of this child? I really don't know. I give Night Terrors a 5 out of 10. Let's pull you over here, old Deirdre. Now, without further memberships, has he got school in the morning? What's his school life? What is his school life? I mean, I'm definitely more accepting of perception filters hiding facts than they were. I'm just going to cut that.